Well, hello everybody, Leslie here. I wanted to talk about, this is it's a common problem, but it's not, we're in the high percentages, but it is a problem when an attorney doesn't like what he or she is doing for a living. That's one reason this happens. And they also feel that they were not cut out to manage their business, and so they don't. And that is a very, very terrible thing to happen, especially, and this is who it really affects the most, the client. So I want you to always understand that in any workplace, right? You've worked in many workplaces, more than likely, that you will find out that you have come across people who didn't do things by the book, but with an attorney, it's so important that they work by the book, that they adhere to the rules. When they are sworn in as an attorney, they swear to uphold certain things, and they swear to protect the client. Just as a doctor takes the Hippocratic oath, an attorney takes an oath, and they are considered an officer of the court, and they should comport themselves and carry themselves in that way. Okay, so it's a big deal because they have people's livelihoods or lives, in their hands as an attorney. And some do not take it that seriously, or they became an attorney, male or female, because there was pressure to do so, or they wanted notoriety, they wanted people to look up to them, whatever it was. There are a certain group of attorneys who don't care how they run their offices, okay? And that goes whether they work now if they work in corporate, usually there are so many guidelines they have to follow and people checking up on them. But when they're running their own business, it then they will let things slide. Even some of the best attorneys will put things in the hands of one of their staffers that should never have that control. The staffer should never have the control of the workplace. The person that owns that building or owns that business should have that control and should check up on it. My grandson said this, that he wants to someday own his own business, but he wants to hire people to handle things. Well, that's what attorneys do, and they will hire the staff to manage the cases, and they will hire maybe a bookkeeper to handle the finances and handle paying the staffers, but also paying the light bill and all of that. But also when people are running a business, for instance, in the area of immigration or most litigation matters where anybody working where you're preparing for trial, it could be you're representing somebody who allegedly broke the law. When the money is being paid to you by the client, that has to be protected. It's not put in the regular checking account. Now, this is for primarily people who are preparing for trial, okay? So we'll just focus on that. So let's talk about what happened with this paralegal and the attorney. The attorney felt that this paralegal was extremely capable, maybe so. But what the paralegal decided to do, and what the attorney allowed, first of all, allowed the paralegal to do, but it is against the rules of professional conduct to do what happened, to do and do the tasks that the paralegal performed, and plus all the other tasks the paralegals have to do. This attorney put this paralegal in a position of being an attorney when he or she had no right to be, and it's not allowed by the state bar. So what did he or she do? This happened in the state of Maryland. The paralegal, the attorney let the paralegal negotiate agreements, settlement agreements. Let the paralegal set fees that the client would pay. Also allowed that the establishment of a client-attorney relationship between the paralegal and the client. Only the attorney can establish an attorney-client relationship where they give advice because they're licensed to do so. The paralegal can never do that, but that attorney allowed this paralegal to do so. When the money came in, when they won, and they won a settlement and the money came in, the paralegal was supposed to deposit it in the trust account and then pay some third-party vendors. It could be court reporters, a whole host of people that were involved in the case, and they hired them, and had like probably 30 days to pay, or however, whatever the agreement was, and they were not paid, and so this becomes like a house of cards, and pretty soon the house of cards comes tumbling down. So why do I tell you these things? Well, we have this is just part one. I'm going to go into part two about cases. Part one, where I listed all those things, almost every single one of those in the rules of professional conduct for paralegals and for attorneys, they have strict guidelines that those things cannot happen. Everything I mentioned. Let's go to number two, negligence of cases. So there are deadlines set forth by the court when certain things have to be filed. The attorney didn't know where he or she stood on any of those cases. Now I've been hired into a law firm, and the attorney I was going to work with did not know where he stood on any of these cases. Now my take on that is he really didn't want to do this type of work, but the money was decent. And so he didn't even skid by. He was, a very, very poor manager, didn't care, absolutely did not care. It allowed me to dig deep and manage these cases, but I never stepped over the line like this paralegal did. So if you have not been shown or taught, if you're taking a 2-year class, or you're in a certificate program, and you are not checking out the rules of professional conduct for the paralegal and for attorneys, you just have to Google it. Please get used to Googling for answers to your questions. You can always ask me, but go Google, because you will become an ace researcher. Okay. These are two of the greatest errors that paralegals and attorneys make. And especially, and it's not just especially attorneys. My husband for a time managed law firms, and he was asked to go to a law firm and just help them get their act together with the management of the law firm. So he was hired as a contract person, a consultant, to come in and help them, and he did. And there were a lot of things that were just amiss, and they corrected all of them. There was an audit that was coming up, and if what is found in an audit of a law firm or a corporate legal department, if what is found is so full of errors, an attorney could be disbarred. That means they won't be able to practice law in that state. and they will lose their law license. That's how serious it is. The paralegal could be in legal trouble. So I want you to understand those rules of professional conduct for both the lawyer and the attorney, and Google that for your state, okay? And check it out. You know, I've said this, if you watched my other videos, I've said this recently. I want you to focus on that. If you weren't taught that, and I doubt that you were, then I want you to go look that up and be aware of it, because there are unethical attorneys out there who will ask you to step over the line, and you cannot. That's why when I put out my Paralegal Inner Circle class, and also just recently took the interview module and made that a separate class, I go over the questions you should ask the attorney. Very, very important questions for you to ask. In the interview, they will be happy you're asking questions, but some of these questions are very important for you to ask so that you don't get into a bind and you don't work for somebody like this. And one of the issues is the trust account, okay? The trust account is a checking account, but it's a complicated matter, and it should only be handled by somebody who's had a lot of training. And a lot of times attorneys just throw this on the paralegal when they have no training in this, and they don't want to pay for training, and they don't, they just want you to do it, and it can be a nightmare. So you don't want to get into something because you don't know what they're going to do once you're hired, and then they throw stuff on you. The same attorney that was negligent with his cases, the one I worked for, as soon as I was hired, what he threw on me was that I would have to collect rent in cash from a rental house that he rented to students. And while I don't like doing that, I insisted that that cash be locked in a desk drawer and that it not be in my desk. And they were they were not diligent in making sure that every desk could lock and had the key that went to the drawer that pulls out. And so it was kind of a haphazard law firm. And so I want you to understand that sometimes these things happen. But when you ask questions ahead of time, and it will let the attorney know that there are certain things you won't do. I mean, not all, some of the questions that I teach you to ask are related to that, what I just talked about, and some are not. The attorneys love it when you ask questions. They don't want to be the only ones sitting there interviewing. And so all of that is in the interview class that I just put out there all by itself, which is part of my bigger class, Paralegal Inner Circle class. So these modules and these classes are there so that you don't end up stepping on a mine or walking into a minefield. I want you to be well aware of what you're getting into. That's why when you interview, you have to do an interview yourself of the attorney so that you understand how they work. Okay? All right, so that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Yes, there are minefields out there, but you can avoid almost 100% of it if you do the right interview. You do the interview correctly and ask the questions you need to ask. So that is it for today. If you want to learn more about the interview class, just scroll down and you will see that graphic. It looks like a 3D box, and you can click the link and check it out. Have a great one. Let me know if you have any questions whatsoever, and I'll talk to you in the next video. Bye.